Okay. This is going to be a demonstration for doing the next steps. This practice shading pattern texture worksheet. So this is pretty much like after you're done with putting all your letters, words into perspective. And pretty much the next steps though are going to be how we're going to add some details to your letters itself. So either adding like a texture or like a pattern, and then also shading the background piece, to add some more details to the to your drawing. Okay, but just before you move on to this next step though, but real important, I didn't mention it before, but yeah, just real important though. Just make sure your letters aren't too thin. Okay, they must be at least like a half inch long. Okay, so this is like something I don't want to see with your letters when you put them into perspective, make them into 3D. Okay, because you're doing more than just making it 3D. You're also putting it into perspective. So when I'm saying like a half inch, so I'm talking about like this distance right here from here to here. This needs to be at least a half inch or more. Okay. Now there are some like instances where like it may not be a half inch or more. So like for example, like right here, obviously this is probably not a half inch. Okay, but if it's close to like that vanishing point though, you can make it less than half an inch though. But in theory though, like especially if it's like really really big though, it should be at least a half inch long. But the main thing though is you want to have some room just to be able to do your shading though, because like this doesn't really give you too much room to do the shading. Plus, it'll definitely make your drawing look a lot better if you make them a little bit thicker. Just because it gives it more like that presence of like, oh, this is coming, in from space, and just it definitely will make it a lot more stronger of a drawing, as opposed to doing something like this where it's like a little bit thinner. All right, so for this practice assignment, though, you're going to just, do some things just to practice on like another sheet of paper. But basically, the stuff that you'll do on this page, though, you're going to do it on your final. But we obviously don't want to do it on the final right away, just because, just because we don't want to mess up on it. I'd rather you have some time to practice in the meantime. Okay, so this first part though, you're basically doing a value, basically creating like a value shading block or a strip. So you may have done this before in your Art 1 class, where you're going from like a gradual change from going from dark to light. So I want you to just kind of get into the practice of just being able to do that. So, like I said before, you've probably done this in your other art classes though, but this top part though, you're going to just go from like your darkest values all the way to the whites. So my paper got cut off here though, but this part's like your darks, and then this one will be your white. I think I wrote light on the other side though, because it's going from dark to light. So this will be your darkest dark, this will be pure white. So we're just gonna just practice going from dark into like darker grays. So this one I'm gonna press a little bit harder, but not as hard as I did here. This is like I'm pressing as hard as I can. Okay, so I do want you to get into practice of going from like a dark to a light, and then just do like some really light gradations as you move further and further. So take your time with this part. So, I got from my dark, light up here. If you feel like you need to make it a little bit more darker, you can. Just be careful not to go too dark when it gets dark to that point. You probably want to do some, layers on this though. So I'll be honest with you, doing the words will be a lot easier than this, but yeah, go from like a white to light dark. Okay, take your time with that. Then this one right here, same thing that's up here. The only difference though is you're going to copy the same thing, but I want you to just kind of go along with it without the use of the lines, because this is like what you're gonna have to do with your letters, your words. You have to go from like a dark, and then there should be a transition where it starts getting a little bit darker in the value. Okay, show me that you can do transition from like the. It's really hard to see because of the auto contrast here. So you're going from like the dark into the lighter grays, and then it'll eventually go to white. Okay, but take your time though. Just practice this, okay? Because you don't want to mess up when you do your final. Okay, you can do either single hatching or cross hatching. So cross hatching is if you want to, go diagonally one way, then diagonally the next way. It basically creates like a crisscross texture. There's not really a preference for like how I want to have you guys do. You can either do single hatching, cross hatching. There's also stippling, but we're not gonna get into all that stuff just yet. Okay, so you want to be able to like show me that I can go from like dark to light. All right, and then on the bottom part here, same thing. Okay, you can go either or direction, but I do find that it is better to go from like a dark to lighter and then go to light because the your vanishing point, which I don't know where it is, but this is like where your light source would be. So you definitely want to go from like a dark to light. So you're gonna do like the same exact thing, and I'm even gonna tilt the paper just because it's a little bit easier to shade on a diagonal. So feel free to tilt the paper though, but you're just gonna practice going from like that dark to light. So now in order to get this nice clean dark to light though, always work lightly with the pencil. And then you want to just keep going over it again and again if you need to make it darker. But I don't want to see people pressing really hard and then trying to like mimic it. Build your layers. Okay, if you want it to naturally look good, you want to build the layers. So I'm using like the same. I want to say the same amount of pressure I'm applying all the time. It's just I'm going over it again. So you want to go from like that dark to light. Same thing down here. I'm gonna turn at an angle. This one's a little harder because this one's longer. But I'm going from a dark to light from the picture. Okay, so you just want to practice that on all the letters. So it's basically your test sheet. So some of these are a little bit harder, some a little more difficult. This one I have to actually curve it out. So you definitely want to go in the direction of the let me cut this
Attention
video.
please, there has been a report of an emergency. Proceed calmly to the nearest exit and leave the building immediately. Do not use the elevators.